And the story of the presentation of Jesus in the temple is among my favorites. It certainly isn't perfect. There are some questions about ethics and cultural practices found in this story. But it's so rich, I find, in imagery, and kind of brings me to this transcendent space where I look at the messages that God has for us as human beings through Christ, and the messages that we bear and we present to one another. There's this moment where Mary and Joseph, after going through their period of purification after the birth of Jesus, which is the cultural challenge number one of this text. You know, women are deemed unclean for a period of time after giving birth. And so they had to have this period of time where Mary couldn't come into the temple. And so that time is over, and they bring their firstborn son, which is problem number 2. Only the firstborn sons are deemed holy. You know, as a secondborn child, ouch, you know? But anyway, they bring their child, as is custom, to the temple to be blessed by the rabbi and by God. And this regular and ordinary custom is kind of burst open into this mystical God moment where a promise is fulfilled, where a prophetic hope is given reality. Because in that temple is Simeon. Simeon is an old man who is devout and in prayer and in practice. And the Holy Spirit reveals to him early in his life that he will not die before laying his eyes on the Messiah. And so he's in the temple, and as Mary and Joseph walk in with Jesus, you know, the Holy Spirit reveals to him that this is the moment that he has been waiting for his whole life. This is that moment where his faith is brought into reality, and God's faithfulness is revealed to him. God's life and God's love and God's glory involves him and includes him and is faithful to him. And he holds that baby and speaks those words, you know, like, my eyes have seen God's salvation, which is prepared before the sight of all people, a light for the Gentiles and glory for the people of Israel. Words that we, in the Anglican tradition, speak over ourselves quite regularly in our liturgies. And then there's this moment where there's also Anna in the mix. So Anna is, again, an elderly woman, a prophet. And when she sees what's going on and the Holy Spirit reveals to her what it is, you know, she gets in there and is like glorifying and praising God and speaking about the good things that Jesus will do. And in that moment that is a regular custom, there's this mystical, spiritual, transcendent moment. I often share of myself in sermons, like personal stories and things. And I think it's important for me, as I do that, to share with you why I do that. Because I don't share of myself in sermons in a spirit of self-service. Like, I don't need you to feel sorry for me or to be happy for me, or I like it when that happens. But I don't need it. That's not why I'm sharing of myself in sermons. I also don't do it because I know that it's each and every person's experience too, because I know we all have different experiences. But I do it because I believe that the scriptures have a message for us that is broken down into the ways that we function as followers of Jesus. And I hope that as I share of myself in these moments, that you're all able to stop for a second and connect with your own feelings and experiences of what I'm enlightening, if you will. Because this story brings out so much in me and in my history and where God has met me and God's life and light has carried me through. Because when I hear this story, I am automatically reminded of those moments that I held my nieces and nephews for the first time. I'm not a parent myself. And yet these moments are so intensely memorable. They're palpable. And it's like, I feel what, in a smaller scale, maybe, but maybe not, actually. I feel that sense of anticipation and faithfulness. Like I've been waiting for this little child to arrive. And there they are in my hands now. And that moment of celebration and blessing, and then like Anna, transcends into this moment of prophetic hope for them. And it's not this naive hope that their life will be full of nothing but peace and joy and rainbows and unicorns and butterflies, but that God's life and God's love and God's light will carry them through the challenges of their life, and that will reside in them and lead them and guide them as they live their lives. And so there's these moments where our job is to speak blessing over those humans in our lives, to honor their dignity, to witness and see their divine potential, and to love on them. There are times when we're called to recognize and bless the life and love that we see in one another. But then there's also these times where I know that I've been carried by the life and light and love of God. I remember when I was 18 or 19 years old, I was struggling with depression. A lot of stuff went wrong in a very short period of time for me. And I was living in my grandmother's basement for a while, because I needed to kind of take a step out and really just feel safe and process all the stuff that was happening. And there was one morning where I woke up, and my grandmother was upstairs in the kitchen doing her fiddling around and praying for me out loud. And it wasn't like praying for this naivety, that everything would be okay, but praying that I would have a sense of my divine purpose in this world that goes beyond the circumstances that we find ourselves. And there is something about that moment that was like I literally woke up knowing that I was being held in God's love, that I was being prayed over, and that my divine potential was being recognized, even though I felt like a mess. So there are times when living into that space of blessing and receiving it is just so darn healing. And there are times when we have to be that voice of blessing, and there are times when we have to receive it. And then there are these purposeful and scary times where both those things happen, and we are called into darkness and scary places, where we're called to be a prophetic and divine voice in our world. One of the things I love about social media is that we get to hear different voices and contexts, and we get to have things about ourselves affirmed and challenged. But one of the things I don't like about social media is that it's really easy for us sometimes to just say, yep, like, share, I'm with her or I'm with him, and not even locate ourselves. And for me this week, I had this moment where I fell right into that kind of like that safe place of just keeping myself distant from a topic or something, but still kind of wanting to be like, yeah, that's my voice too, yay. And Ellen Page was on Stephen Colbert this week. And so Ellen Page, I'm not sure if everyone knows who she is. She's a young actress. She actually is Canadian by origin, and came out about 5 years ago as a lesbian, and had this moment on Stephen Colbert where she was just like fired up about the dynamic that's playing out in our world right now when it comes to LGBTQ people. And she has this this documentary called Gaycation, which I watched on New Year's Eve with my puppy. And it's where she goes into different parts of the world, into the gay culture, and looking at the struggles and the reality for many LGBTQ people in our world. And she calls forth leadership that promotes hate and harm to the LGBT community, or to the LGBT people. So there's a sect of leadership that promotes things like conversion therapy, that seeks to deny same-sex couples the right to marry or to be in loving relationship. And she calls it out. And she just says, we need to connect the dots here. If we have leaders that are promoting hate and harm, then what do we think is going to happen? We're going to see LGBTQ people being abused, homeless, committing suicide. Like, we're going to see these things happen because this message of hate is spoken into them. And she says, it's just got to stop. And I shared it and said, I'm with her. And then I went away feeling like I had this around my throat, right? It's like, I'm trying to stay safe and polite in a world that needs me to have fire. Because, I am a survivor of conversion therapy. I literally, when I was 18 years old, came out to my pastor and he referred me to a program that tried to change me. I have family members that I love dearly who do not think I have the right to be married, to find love or companionship. And here I am saying, I'm with her. So I had to basically go back and say, no, this is my message and this is my voice too. Why? Because I have the experience of being loved, of being in the light and glory of God. And I have, out of that and out of the opposite, I have a commitment to a radical inclusion, where the message of God and God's salvation is for all people, as we see in the Song of Simeon. It's for all people. And I think we need to be in a place where that message is loud and clear, because those leaders are not just political leaders, but they're leaders in our church that feel the same way. And it's time that we say it stops. And it all comes from this divine and mystical story of the presentation of the Lord, where we recognize the dignity, the possibility, the goodness in every human being that we meet, and where we actually receive that message ourselves too. Sometimes those things happen both together as well. And we, as a people, step into a divine space that speaks that message over each and every person that we are in contact with. That's scary and good news, and comforting and hopeful and real, and in my opinion, it's what the world needs now. Amen.